Hello everybody, James here, Storytime with Dutch Mantell, episode 142. And I guess we're a tiny bit late to the party with when we're recording this, I suppose, but obviously a fair bit of this episode is going to be regarding the death of Hulk Hogan. You were just saying off-air, Dutch, because you live in Tampa as well, it's still huge news in Tampa.
Oh, it's big news. And thinking about this, when something big hits, we always recorded for the next week. I mean, we have the worst, not luck, but that's the way it works out. So we recorded the last show. We record on a Tuesday, folks. So, and Hulk died on a Thursday morning about 10:30 or so.
Yeah, he was pronounced dead just after 11, but I think they called before 10 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, well, and we got a lot to say about that, and I got a lot to say about it. So, and we'll continue.
We will. I'm going to do the short version of the intro. The email to email this show, especially with your questions for the weekly Ask Dutch Anything episode, is questionsfordutch@gmail.com. And also, once again, I still don't have internet, so we're sort of bodging this together somewhat. At least I've got a better microphone this time and a better video, if nothing else. So if it's not quite up to the quality you're used to, I'm sorry, it'll be good for next week anyway. Right then, should we just get straight into it, Dutch?
Let's kick it.
Okay, the death of Hulk Hogan. So Bubba the Love Sponge claimed some weeks ago that the reason Hulk Hogan had stopped doing publicity for Real American Beer and the Real American Freestyle Wrestling, etc., was that he was at death's door, and he was just very confused, not in any condition to be in the public eye, quote, and that he also may have been in a coma. He was coming out with all these different things, and I think a lot of people are eye-rolling because, you know, it's from Bubba the Love Sponge, who was the guy who secretly filmed his former best friend engage. How would you politely say it? Coitus.
What's that word?
How would you politely say what Bubba the Love Sponge purposely filmed Hulk Hogan and his wife engaging in to extort money from him in the future?
He literally screwed Hogan. Because, and I mean, I hated when that happened. I really did. And Bubba the Love Sponge, you know, in Tampa, he's not held in high regard. He was a shock jock back in the early 2000s, I guess, you know, where he would say outlandish things, but I never listened to him because I wasn't in Tampa at that time. But those shock jocks, to me, they wear thin quickly, and you've heard about they can shock people, so you're done with them. So I never really listened to him, but I did see him, you know, in some kind of advertisement for something he was doing. But he was the type that puts me off immediately, because all he's going to do is just say outlandish things and make outlandish claims. And when he came out and said that Hulk was on his deathbed, I didn't believe that. Nobody else did either. But he did it because he wanted to get some clicks on that dying career of his. And I guess he got some. But you know, even a blind person is right about the time twice a day. He can't see the clock, and he was right about Hogan, but I think he was just making that up anyway. But regardless, he is what he is.
That's interesting because we don't know how much he was making up and we don't know how much was true, because there's going to be some conflicting things here. Right, so once again, no one particularly seemed to believe Bubba at the time. But then it was getting suspicious that Hogan had been seen out about in weeks and weeks. Later, it was then revealed that he was in hospital for neck surgery that didn't go as well as hoped. 2 weeks before Hogan had died, Hulk Hogan's wife, Sky, went on the offensive to say that Bubba's claims were false and gave another explanation for Hogan being out of the limelight. So essentially, she said, I won't read the entire thing. He was having serious neck surgery, long and layered healing process, affects the vocal cords, eating and breathing tubes that are clamped over during surgery. With Stevie Richards, who also on the WSI network I do a show with, his voice has been affected permanently because he's had 2 neck surgeries and it affects the vocal cords as well, because he sounds markedly different now than he does in the 90s. And then she says, they're taking it one day at a time, healing, love, strength, and patience, etc. Then, less than 48 hours before Hogan passed away, Jimmy Hart posted the following: Hulk is doing great, doing phenomenal. Last night at karaoke with Nick was absolutely fantastic, baby. Now, shunting those two sentences together, it sounds like Hulk Hogan was at karaoke, but he wasn't. It's just too...
Right.
It's a run-on kind of thing where it's, I guess, made to make you think that, I suppose. Maybe. And then the... 1 second, I'm sorry, I've got to go to the next page. And then TMZ reported that 71-year-old wrestling legend Hulk Hogan had been battling health issues since May, passed away. It ended up fire and police personnel responded to Hogan's Clearwater home at 9:51. He was declared dead at 11:17 a.m. Eastern. That was...
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When you heard about this, what was your reaction?
I was interviewing somebody for a job, and I just kept getting it because I was doing it on my phone because I've got no internet. Just kept getting notification after notification after notification. So, I mean, total disbelief. Because I don't know, there's certain people you just assume are just going to be there forever. I know no one's there forever, but I just didn't think that Hogan was that sick or felt like he wasn't, I mean, where were you when you got the news, and what was your reaction?
It shocked me. It really did. And I didn't know him that well. And we'll talk about this later. But I was around in the early days, almost his starting days. He was in Florida. I was in Florida and used to make trips with him. I'll save this story for later on. But it shocked me because sometimes you think that somebody is there forever. And when that news came across, I went, wow. And I can't describe the feeling, but it really, because I really liked him. Regardless, they tried to destroy his reputation at the end, some people. But I liked Huck, and it shocked me when I heard about his death.
So, after the fact, Jimmy Hart gave an interview maybe a couple of days before we record this on Tuesday, saying that he'd been told the day prior to Hogan's death that he was in really good health considering, and that he was well on the road to recovery. So we still don't know, once again, how true Bubba's claims were that he was in a coma or he was on his deathbed or whatever, because I think for everybody who was close, and I think only Jimmy Hart has said this publicly, is that he was actually on the road to recovery, and then he just had a heart attack and died. So we don't know how true, if at all, Bubba's claims of, comas and whatnot were true. I'm sure that'll all come out in the, intervening weeks and months, I guess. Now, we'll go through his career. So where was the first time you met Hulk? Was it in Memphis, or was it even earlier?
Oh, it was in Tampa, here in Florida territory. And I'm thinking, I started like 72, 73. I don't want to date myself, but, anybody can say, damn, that's some bitch is old. But anyway, I think it was like 76, 77. And he was just starting here. And I used to take trips with him, and he was big like he is now, but just not as, and he's been more cut up in his training, but he just had really the sheer size then. He was actually bigger up close than what you saw him from a distance. And he'd probably only had, like, other than training, and you never have a match in training. You have bits and pieces of a match is what you have. But I remember I would make the long trips with him, because in Florida, everybody locates bases out of Tampa or that area. And Miami was like 275 away. And then Jacksonville, the other way, was like 220 and on a Thursday. And then you'd come back to Tampa, and on Friday you'd go to Tallahassee, which was about 240. So if you add those up, that's about 500 miles a day just to those towns. And that adds up to 1,500 miles. You could easily do, in Florida, 2,300 miles a week which is a lot of miles if you're just traveling to get there and get back. So, but that's where I met Hulk. Had a lot of conversations with him, and I've been reading about. Did you read about his brother?
Yeah,
That was
he
a
was
big
wasn't he
guy
like head of
too.
a chapter of the Hell's Angels or something? He was the father of
Yeah, something like that.
Horace Hogan, for people who
But
don't know.
well, writing with Hulk, he never even told me about his brother. I didn't even know he had a brother. To tell you the truth, and he explained to me how he got in and how tough it was. And his trainer was Hiro Matsuda, and he was a really, really tough guy. Really, because he wasn't overly big. He's probably 210, 220, maybe. And we'll talk about this a little later, what they call the snake pit. They would take them down there to try them out, guys that were loud mouths and smart asses, and they would take them down to the office where they actually filmed their TV there, a little studio. And it was called the snake pit because once they got them in there, they had them. And they would literally rip these aspiring, they wanted to be wrestlers, they just didn't know how to go about doing it. And they would just take them in there and just stretch them. And they have been reports of some wrestlers actually running out on the street yelling, "Help me, help me." And the police stopped one and they picked him up, brought him back. And the police come to the door and they knew what was going on in there because they would come by that office and check in sometimes. And they went to the door and they said, "We have a gentleman out here in the car that says you guys are trying to kill him in here." They said, "Oh no, we're just training. He's just a wuss." And the police laughed and they said, "All right, go on back in there." And he didn't want to go. They said, "Oh, come on in, you know." And they drug him back in there and closed the door. And the police drove off. I mean, they would really, really. I mean, it was brutal what they did to some of those guys, which I didn't really agree with because now you couldn't do that stuff because they'd sue the hell out of you.
Mm.
But back then, I mean, nobody even thought about suing anybody because that made you less than a man, I guess. But anyway, but Huck, he was drug in there a few times and stretched because they had the personnel to do it. They had Matsuda, they had Bob Roop, and they had a few more that were like, I mean, just really, really good at wrestling shoot style. So once you were drug in there, and if you know anything about wrestling, you if you'd see that lineup, you'd say, "Oh, no, I think I'll have to skip today's session and leave." But the guys, you would almost get yourself an invitation when you would say things like, "Oh, it's all fake, it's all this, it's all that." That almost guaranteed you, if you wanted to go and volunteer to go, that almost guaranteed you an invitation to come and train with us. And they used it to say, "We'll train with you and see if you have what it takes to be a wrestler." Because that's what they wanted anyway. They wanted to get into the business. So they take them down there and just beat the hell out of them. Brutal.
Hogan would claim that his leg was broken in his first minute of like the first training session with Hiro Matsuda, and then he'd have to heal up, and then 6 weeks later he'd turn back up, and they'd eventually train him. I'm going to get back to like some of the road trips you had with Hogan in the early days.
Yep.
But he was about to leave wrestling at one point. He wasn't catching on at all, at least the first couple of years, until he probably got to Memphis or something like that. Maybe not even Memphis. Maybe it's when he first went to Japan, but like for 2 or 3 years. And I think this is like in Dr. D. Dave Schultz's book. where Dr. D claimed that he had to basically talk him into staying with wrestling because good things are just around the corner. But it was a real brutal
where
existence.
did David run in? Where did David run into him? Minneapolis,
Tennessee, most likely, or somewhere around there. Who knows?
Or maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
Yeah, so it's probably when he got to the WWF, Hogan realised there was big money to be made when he was working your Gorilla Monsoons and Andre the Giants and such. But until then, he didn't really want to be in the business that much, especially, you know, with the low pay that the Fullers and whatnot, I guess, were paying comparatively.
Well, that's the story of the business. I mean, the ones that stayed with it were the ones who were loyal, and the ones who were really, really wanted to get into the professional wrestling profession. And see, wrestling in those days was nothing. It wasn't even a snapshot of what wrestling is today. They have taken this business, and the business was taken from the carnies, from the carnival. That's where it was taken from, professional wrestling. So, but then they would run. You didn't have TV contracts. You didn't have networks. You didn't have the infrastructure that they have now to support a business like pro wrestling and to pay the money they're paying now. Back then, it was like local stations, like a channel. I'm using this just because I can't think of anything else. Like a channel 17 out of Atlanta, which actually grew, and it was the start of the network for professional wrestling that Ted Turner, and I've heard Ted Turner said his success of Channel 17 in Atlanta was basically due to wrestling. He said that paid the bills for years and years and years because he had a loyal viewing audience, and people would be return viewers and repeat viewers, and they would just watch it every week. So he gave pro wrestling. He said that's the reason he survived.
I think in an earlier episode, you told me that Hogan, when you used to make the trips with him, you just said Hogan would not stop talking about himself.
No. He was. You could tell it was all about Hogan. So I just sat back and listened to it because he was kind of entertaining. After you've heard a story 3 times, and 4th time he told it, and he would almost tell it verbatim. I mean, there was no variation between one story last week and the same story this week. But I enjoyed traveling with him. Good guy, and I liked him. And usually it was just me and him on a trip. And a lot of times, and I would go with Hulk because he would take his car. I love that. You take your car, you do the driving, and I'll listen to you. Okay. That's a pretty good swap off, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
And
I was going to ask, when was the last time you bumped into Hogan? Was it in Memphis with Brutus?
No, it was in TNA.
In TNA. It's funny how, you two worked that many years, and there was like a 25-year gap or something between you two bumping into each other again.
He remembered me, and we talked for a little bit, but he was coming in, and I was going out. Because him and Eric Bischoff came in, and it's like when somebody else is, you get a new manager in a business, in civilian life, I call it. Well, they're going to bring their people in. So if you're in some kind of a supervisory capacity, which I was, he wants his own supervisors, and I don't blame him. But there in TNA, that's a whole nother story. That's not even the wrestling business, really. It was something masquerading as the wrestling business. Mm-hmm. But that's where I met him. And I met Eric Bischoff. I don't know. I was on a plane with him maybe 5-6 years ago, and we talked. We talked briefly, not about TNA, of course, but We were just talking about wrestling in general, and he was a nice guy. But I had worked under him in Atlanta, and what year was this?
That would have been
Oh, this is
91.
it's in the 90s, yeah. And he was assuming his duties there. So, and it amazed, hey, the guy who really, I never expected Hogan. You know, when you first meet him, you don't expect these guys to be as big as they got. I mean, that would take a fortune teller and a good one. But I could see that he had the personality, he could talk, and he had the body, and he had the blonde hair. He had all that stuff. So I could see him becoming a big star because now you have something to work with. So anybody in creative can look at him and say, you know, and they tell another member, you know, we might have something with this guy. And so, but everybody's giving Hulk most of the credit, which he deserves, and rightfully so. But when you put him with a creative genius like Vince McMahon, I mean, he's been around the business all his life. And when you put those two together, they couldn't miss because Vince knew that if you're going to have a big star, you got to make them a big star. And, you know, thinking back on, you know, my years in the business, I think Memphis did this the best of any smaller territory in the country because they made stars. They did all those videos on all those guys. And like the Rock and Roll Express got all those videos done on them before they came in. But they do about 3 or 4 weeks of them. Coming soon. Now, folks, they're going to be here next Monday night in Memphis. And there they are. Now the house would be up. People saying, well, they pushing these guys for something. Let's go see these guys. And so, and then that same formula transcended the business. Then they went to Mid-South. Then they did all those, you know, coming soon videos with them. They were made before they even got there. And then Vince took that idea and refined it, but with better video editing equipment and better production. And it became a way to get guys over. I remember the Rock and Roll they went to when they went to Charlotte the first time. Mm-hmm. They did the 4-week buildup on them. Now we started out talking about Hogan. We're doing something else, but this is where they got Hogan over because they made him a star before he got there. And when the Rock and Roll got to Charlotte on their first night, they beat the Russians for the titles. So they were made, and they drew nothing but money. And here's a little story. Rick one time was kind of pissed off about, about the Crockett's not paying him right. I said, well, how much money did you make? He said, oh, he made good money, but he made his money just off the live gate. He said he got paid nothing for the gimmicks, for the pictures and all. And that's where the money is. So his money, just selling the photos, that paid him and Robert's salary, and the houses were just extra. But I bet they sold a ton of, and then they would tell them every night, go out to the table, go out there, you know, if you're out there, we'll sell more, and which they did. But we're supposed to be talking about Hogan.
Well, we'll get to Hogan in a minute again. So I want to finish that story because I've interviewed Ricky, I've interviewed Robert, and they both say to a point, Dusty really screwed them over. And it was purely to do with jealousy. To the point where, you know, the B show house shows would be outdrawing, starring the Rock and Rolls, would be outdrawing the A show starring Dusty. And at some point, something had to give, and, you know, Dusty's ego couldn't let it go, according to them. So either Dusty would start tagging with the Rock and Roll Express, or worse, I think Ricky Morton ended up getting a singles run, and then Dusty was going to try and fire Robert over it, and then,
Yeah, I've heard that story too. Ricky told me this one time. He said they were going to, and he didn't know about this. He said they were going to give him a brief run with the title from Flair.
Yeah, the championship, yeah.
The NWA Heavyweight Championship. But he didn't know they were going to try to fire Robert. And he went up, and Ricky told me this. He said, if you're going to do that, he said, I'm going to quit. And they couldn't believe that one wrestler would actually go out so far as to quit a job because you were treating somebody else differently and was going to lose a job. And Ricky said, I'm not going to do it. And I guess he told them in such a way that they believed him. So they didn't put the belt on Ricky, but they also didn't fire Robert. So I don't know, but that to me, that showed how loyal Ricky was to his friends. And he's still that way today. He's still the same Ricky that I knew years and years ago in Memphis. Same guy.
To go back to Hogan then, so using the Rock and Roll Express as an example of how to get somebody over in a territory, Hogan had the same thing going for him when he went back to the WWF in very late 1983, and then he wins the title within a couple of weeks of him returning. And obviously you're not going to be, watching everybody
when did he go to WWE? In 83, you said?
Right, okay, so originally it was still the WWF, so it would have been 79, 80, and then he goes and does Rocky 3, he gets fired because of it, and then he plies his trade in the AWA, makes a huge success of himself. Vern Gagne doesn't want to give him the big belt because he won't marry one of his daughters or something. He wants to keep it in the family, I guess. So then Hogan goes back to the WWF in December of 1983. And then all of a sudden, the likes of Jesse Ventura and Mean Gene and Dr. D and everybody else from the AWA does the same thing around the same time. But you obviously, you're in Memphis, you're Puerto Rico, you're everywhere at this point. You're not going to be watching WWF television every single week, of course. You've got your own things to worry about. But when did you become aware, and how did you become aware that the WWF and Hulk Hogan in particular were becoming such a powerhouse that, Hogan had all of a sudden become the biggest star in wrestling, eclipsing Dusty, eclipsing Flair and everybody else?
Well, since I was inside the business, all the local promoters or the heads of the little territories, they knew it was coming. And it's hard to, what's that old saying? Hard to keep them down on the farm when they've seen the lights of Broadway or whatever that saying is. Mm-hmm. The same thing. Their production was so smooth. And it was actually fun to watch. And because here you see the WWF back in those days, they're in front of these huge, huge houses. And sometimes they could take an arena that would seat 10,000, 12,000, and it would either be sold out or they would make it look like it was sold out. So you're watching a big event with some big stars, and they made their titles actually mean something. It's not like, a lot of places made their title it was just like a ball they would just throw back and forth. They made their titles actually mean something. So, and when they see that production, that crowd, the talent, because all those talent were all jacked up and hulked up, and then they would see some local studio wrestling show with a guy that looked like he should be changing oil down at Olathon, and he's getting up under the car and getting he's one of the wrestlers, there's no competition at all. So it was very easy for WWE to actually take over. And we all knew it was coming because all you got to do is just watch their TV, watch their production, what's they're announcing, their interviews. It was all done first class.
Did you keep tabs on the business at that time, or did you just hear the scuttlebutt from promoters and other wrestlers
About what?
about WWF's, impending taking over of every other territory with their fantastic production and everything else? Were you actually
Well, this
watching the
is what they
shows
would.
occasionally?
Okay, say a local promotion was on, say, Channel 4, which was a VHF station, and you didn't have to have, I mean, you could pull it in fairly well with just an antenna. That was back in days before cable. But what WWE would do, WWF would do, they would go in there and they would buy the time. Before they was having the local promotion, they were trying to sell ads to it. So it became easier for the TV station because now, and Vince had it in his head that if I take this, I got it. If I take this station, I got it. And he would go in and he bought up all the station. He bought the time. So the TV station was making money from the get-go with WWF back in those days. And when another or the same wrestling promotion said something about it, and they said, yeah, well, we can give you the same time for X number of dollars. And they couldn't afford it. And Vince basically bought his way into these little territories and in swaths of the country by paying his way as he went.
You know that Hogan, I believe I'm right, has actually worked less dates than the other guys. I think to a point. So he wasn't working 400 days a year, going back to Japan back and forth. Although he, was going to Japan back and forth at that time as well.
How many days a year was he working?
He was claiming 400 at one point. He was living 400 days a year. Anyway, he was actually turning up to the meetings with Vince, to convince these TV stations to go with the WWF and instead of the AWA or whoever it might be, or the NWA. So Hogan was really instrumental in convincing a lot of TV executives that basically the WWF was the future as well. I want to move forward, Dutch. Right, so you're Zeb Coulter in the WWE. We're talking 2013, 2014. Hogan was still in with the company at that point. Did you ever have any interaction with Hogan at that point in the mid-2010s?
Not that much, other than, hey, how you doing? It's been a long time, blah, blah, blah. Just a greeting. And because I never saw him when I left because he was going his way, I was going mine. But he would spend most of his time up around the creative bunch and with Vince, and that's where he'd be.
Do you remember the reaction when Hogan was all of a sudden persona non grata? These leaked quotes that he said behind closed doors from, I think it was recorded by Bubba, the Love Sponge in his house, and, as part of the whole record things Hogan says that, we can then use against him later on down the line kind of thing. By the way, Bubba claims that the video and the videotapes were stolen from his house, and that's how they got out, and that it wasn't him who released them. That being said, do you remember that WWE's reaction? Did they say, right, from this moment on, Hulk Hogan will never be back, you can never say his name, or was it just obvious not to bring him up at that point?
I don't remember an official announcement, but basically, I think it was, you understand. I think anybody who's been with WWE for any period of time knows that there's some things, some questions you don't ask. I mean, you can ask questions, but somebody that you trust, somebody in the dressing room. But if they had anything to do with the front office personnel or Vince, you kind of kept your thoughts and your beliefs to yourself, which is the best way to do it, because then if they know too much about you, it could hurt you in the long run.
And that sort of takes us absolutely perfectly to, we're going to talk about some of the lows of Hulk Hogan. Normally there's so much more to talk about Hulk, of course, but we're just trying to go through the bits that Dutch will have first-hand knowledge in. We're going to talk about some of the lows. Of course, the last WWE appearance of Hulk Hogan with Jimmy Hart on Netflix. It was the debut episode of Netflix. It went terribly. And I think it was just years and years of Hogan. It's several things, and I'll mention it. One, he came out so strong for Trump, which is always going to alienate his politics, more divisive now than it's ever been in the history of the States and pretty much anywhere else in the world. You're going to alienate at least half of your fan base. That's that.
Absolutely. One thing I always say, and I heard this when I was a kid, 2 things you don't let people know if you want to stay friends with them is your religion and your politics. Keep it quiet. And some of these actors that come out and their politics is not what I'm aligned with, I just stop watching them. I don't, because they made it the issue, not me. But if they just kept it just entertaining me and I don't know anything about their personal life or their personal beliefs, I'm fine with it. You can believe however you want to believe, but just don't tell me about it.
There was also the obviously the racist comments he made, which a lot of people didn't forgive him for. He when he returned to WWE some years later after being ousted, he, as part of like an apology to the entire WWE staff and all the wrestlers, he basically did a quick apology and he said the main point of the thing that Hogan said was actually just be careful what you say in front of who and make sure they're not recording you, etc., because you can never trust anybody. And everybody was like, that's the worst apology I've ever heard.
I'm kidding. Anyway. You apologized for something, said, well, yeah, but I still believe that, but I made a mistake by having somebody record it.
Yeah. It should be said that tons, like including like Booker T and The Rock and so loads of black wrestlers have come out and said, I've never even said anything racist. He's always been really good to me as well. So, you know, there's, anyway, that's their thing. But the other thing as well is like there was the Trump thing, and there's also the Tall Tales. That I think those 3 things combined really just teamed up over the years to just put people off Hogan. I mean, ultimately he was sort of the he harmed his own reputation after so many years. But some of the lies were hilarious. I mean, because I've said this before. There's some of the most charming nonsense stories, apart from the fact that, you know, he's lived 400 days a year because he gained time going to Japan and then flew back and somehow he didn't lose time back and stuff. And, body slammed Andre at WrestleMania 3 and he died 2 days later. And he didn't. He died 6 years later. There's tons. Because I'm on a remote thing here at the moment, I actually collated nearly 100 examples of him just making stuff up. But they're all funny, for the most part.
Oh, yeah, they are. The thing that he made the most of was slamming Andre. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing, though. That wasn't even the first time he slammed him. He slammed him in 79. Slammed him in Japan, probably.
Yeah, but see, if the people, unless it's recorded and played back, well, it never happened.
Hogan knows a lot about recording and playing back. I'll tell you that. Well, a lot of things recorded about Hogan that's played back. Ah, dear. I mean, ultimately, I guess he deserved the reputation he got at the end because he was sort of, as far as his public image, he didn't do himself any favors quite a few years as well, I guess. But once again, I mean, at least the lies and stuff are fairly harmless and just big, wrestler exaggerations, I suppose.
Yeah, if people really wanted to put a lot of thought about it, which they won't. Okay, he said this. Oh, well, that makes him what I said he was. It makes him a racist or whatever. Or he said this about women, blah, blah, blah. If you think back in your life, a lot of people have said a lot of things that they shouldn't have said, but it wasn't recorded. And you're thinking, well, and you didn't put that much thought behind it. But when Hogan said it, or a big star like Hogan, and he was one of the biggest stars out there for a long, long time. When he said it, it was easy to attack him just by crediting whatever tape they had shown or whatever audio recording they had. So he was stuck with it. Once the people hear it, they don't forget it either. But I think it is blown out of proportion.
Yeah, I think ultimately, especially when considering there are other say-no-name, beloved wrestling stars out there over the years that have done far worse things, that have sort of been swept under the rug. I mean, you
Well,
still have
I could
defenders
come
of
on
Chris
here
Benoit
and
out there.
yeah, well, that's another example. But I could say a lot of things I've heard some guys say, but why? They said it in a. They may have said it in a when they were mad, when they were upset. They were this, they were that. But you see, when somebody hears a story, they don't put the scene in there. They just said he said it. So once he says it, and somebody credits him with saying it, well, he said it. And I don't know. That doesn't carry as much weight as something being recorded, like Hulk fell victim to. But hey, we've all said things that we regretted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Hulk Hogan said a lot of things that I'm sure he regretted afterwards, things regarding like Nick Hogan and stuff. No, he said something really bad about that. But, this was also at a time when, he was, I guess under a lot of stress, going through a divorce. He was, I won't say addicted to, but he was taking an awful lot of pain pills just to get through the day. And he was a completely different person, I guess, at one point as well. So I always like to try and factor in those kinds of mitigating circumstances for if somebody's not on top form or saying things that they wouldn't normally say, kind of thing, which I think is also important to
Let me ask you
mention.
this: how much did he sue Gawker for?
Well,
I may have already asked you this last week.
Well, no, he sued for like 40 million or something like that, and the judge ended up awarding him something like 115 million. How much of that he actually got in the end, we don't know.
Ask me what he got.
I know you're going to say zero, aren't you?
I'm going to say close your eyes. What do you say? Nothing. That's what he got. Because they actually, bankruptcy is a way to avoid losing everything you got when they win a suit against you. So
thing is with the Gorka trial, because we were talking about this beforehand as well. So Peter Thiel, he was the co-founder of PayPal, bankrolled Hulk Hogan secretly during the trial, and there was
he was mad at Gawker.
Yeah, he was mad at Gorka for outing him as gay years earlier, and he's like, "Well, that's no one's business but mine," and I'm not. I wasn't ready to tell people, and he was really upset with them for years, biding his time. And there's a really skewed documentary on Netflix which says that this is billionaires are running the courts and da 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 da. It's like, hang on, Gorka was a very, very wealthy company that was getting the best lawyers to go after Hogan, who was going after them, etc. And the fact was is that they got outmatched financially. Hogan got the best lawyers, and Hogan ended up winning because it was a total. I mean, one, it was recorded to blackmail him, and two, no matter how it got out, it was not in the public interest. It is easily, arguably, not in the public interest. He's not a politician or anything like that, and it was all consenting adults doing their thing.
Let me ask you this. How did Hulk get lined up with Peter Thiel? Didn't Peter Thiel seek him out?
That I don't know. I suspect yes, because Peter Thiel would have seen that Gorka or Hulk Hogan was trying to take Gorka to trial, or the other way around. I don't know which way it was. But then he offered to help from there. But the thing was, it's like Gorka was about as scummy, muckraking non-journalism as you could get, and a real nasty tone for years and years and years as well. Like, if you're in the public eye of celebrity.
If you had to list, I'm going to ask you a question. If you had to list how strong Hulk Hogan was over with the people in general, worldwide, where would you place Hogan? Would you place him in the top 10?
Wrestlers or people in general?
No, just the personalities.
I don't know. He was still one of the most recognizable people on Earth, even though he hadn't wrestled in 20 years. I think most people in any country, or maybe not the majority, but enough people in every country would know who he was, whether it's South Sudan or Eritrea.
People in China knew who he was.
Yeah.
You didn't know him in North Korea. Let me say that.
Well, I don't know. I can't get in.
I don't think he's known in North Korea.
He's probably not known in North Korea because they so heavily control the media there, so probably not. All they do is apparently watch 90s movies.
Would you put him in the top 10 in the world?
I don't know if I put him in the top 10 most recognizable or biggest personalities in the world, but he's absolutely one of.
I think I would.
I think the only wrestler, and not for wrestling, that was more recognized than Hulk Hogan's The Rock. But he's probably more recognized for films than he is for the wrestling at this point.
Well, I think he was, like you said, one of the most recognizable figures in the world at one point. So, but he was good to make a trip with.
Yeah,
I heard his whole story.
We'll just end with this then. Who else can say? I think I said this last week as well. Who else can say that they were the biggest star in the WWF, WWE, WCW, AWA, New Japan? Who else can also say in the history of wrestling that they revolutionized the business twice? Once with Vince McMahon in the rock and wrestling era in the mid-'80s, once in 1996 with the NWO, because that changed everything. It's like, who else can say that? It's an amazing, amazing accomplishment.
Well, he can say it, but I can't think of anybody else who could say that. I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing 110% with you there.
Yeah. Just to sort of end it, because I know we've said some of the negatives, a joke here and there, but
another thing is he had those two runs, WWF and WCW, but he was a babyface in one and a heel in the other. That is highly, highly unheard of. Because somebody would think, how could you be just a super, super babyface and then be a super, super heel? And his wrestling ability wasn't that good. But see, people didn't watch him for his wrestling ability.
I disagree. I thought he was a great wrestler. He didn't do much.
Oh, he was. Well, he was, because he took what he had and he made it work for him. And it was his body, it was his interview, it was brother. Because when you saw him, he was a difference. And if any other wrestler had tried to do the same thing he did, people would immediately say, "Ah, man, that's just a Hulk Hogan impression and not a very good one." So, when people walk around on Halloween dressed up like the Hulk, everybody knows who it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how well known he was. Of course, I'm not saying something that nobody don't already know, but I enjoyed watching him. I enjoyed his interviews, and I enjoyed making trips with him. I enjoyed knowing him.
I want to ask you one more thing, because I think I said this last week and we got into a debate with it. Not me and you, but me and Stevie. I said Hogan was a great wrestler, but should I say Hogan was a great worker? Do you differentiate between the two?
Now, when you say wrestler, you're talking about in the ring. How do you say that word? The machinery that he used in the ring didn't compare with his image and his presentation. Because when Hook presented himself, it was a full package, minus some arm drags and some slams and drop kicks. If he'd have done that, I think he'd have killed his own deal. Because he was just a big guy and he had all this personality and to the people, and he said he actually invited the crowd to participate with me, and they obliged him. They did.
We are going to mention
what
a couple.
If you just saw Hulk do a big leapfrog, then
more
a
like
big hip toss and a head scissors, and boom, and a couple of arm drags, and you go, what the hell is he doing?
I'll see him in Japan. There's a match with like Tenryu or something from 1991. He's doing insuguris and the whole bit. Everyone's never did any of that in the States. But it's not like he wasn't capable.
Well, he probably was, but I'm saying, I don't know what Japan was paying him.
Good money. Amazing money. And he was a big star immediately. He was Inoki. He beat Inoki. Nobody beat Inoki practically. So he was a huge star immediately over there.
So he was. I'm searching for the right word. I mean, everybody could just look at him and see we could do something with him, which is why him bouncing around for a couple of years. But it takes, and I had a guy tell me one time, I can't remember who it was. It takes a wrestler 5 years to even learn how the business works. And I heard that. I was in the business about 2 years. I went, bull crap. It don't take that long, but it does. It really does. You got to make the loop. And if you just stay in one company, you will never learn that. But if you go to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, I've been to 10 or 12. I've been to a lot of organizations, and you learn something different every time. Sometimes it's not good to learn some of these things, but you need to know them. And Hulk, it took him about that long to get going. But when he got going and when he developed his style, and if he wanted to wait a minute, let me ask you a question. How did he get booked back in WWF?
Oh, it's because Junior was in charge at that point. So Senior was the one, Vince McMahon Senior was the one who fired Hogan in like 80. And then by the time he fired him, yeah.
Who fired him? Vince
McMahon Senior fired Hogan.
Oh, okay.
The first
Vince
time.
McMahon Senior.
Yeah, and then Junior was in power in late 83 when Hogan came back. And I think Vince Senior had died by that point.
So Junior saw him when Vince Senior brought him in, and so he had all this time to think about what he would do if he had control of a Hulk Hogan for himself.
Absolutely.
So he had all that time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he did, and we can say a lot of things about Vince McMahon too, but one thing you can't say that he didn't know how to promote, because he knew how to promote. And I think after you do something so long and you hit a sticking point that you just don't know, it all runs together. And I think that's what happened to Vince. It all ran together at the end, and he wasn't creative anymore, and that can happen. Do you ever read any Stephen King stuff?
I've seen some films. I'm not a big reader of fiction anyway.
Well, he's made some great books, and I've read not all of them, but a lot. I've read a lot of them, but I think he finally just hit the wall. I don't think he can write anymore. I think it's all jumbled up in his head, and I don't think he's able to have the productivity and the creativity like he once had. So, but he's got more money anyway. He doesn't need to write another word. So he's like a billionaire, I think. But anyway, I think the same thing happens to bookers. It's nothing what we're talking about right now, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. This is how conversations go up and down the highway, back and forth and back and forth. And you might remember one thing I say. Didn't you say? And I said, I didn't say that. Yeah, you did. Blah, blah, blah. And if you'd have had a recorder, you could say, play it back for me. Oh, yeah, I did say that. Then I have to explain myself. All right, continue.
Well, if Bubba the Love Sponge was in the car, you'd definitely have a recorder. All right, we're gonna move on.
I'm gonna go find him today.
Yeah, run him over.
And I'm gonna tell him. Yeah, I'm gonna tell him you said that.
Okay, right. We're gonna move on. Ric Flair on Hogan said. So we've got a bit more Hogan stuff. Then we are going to move on. So, Ric Flair gave a teary interview to TMZ the day after Hogan's passing, and yesterday, as we record this, I wrote this for Stevie's and just copied and pasted it. So it was a few days ago. Then he was also on Ariel Helwani's show discussing the amount of surgeries Hogan had been dealing with and the pain he was in. Here's the quote from Rick. I think he, Hulk Hogan, just got tired. I mean, 11 back operations, hip replacements, now a neck surgery. How much can your body take? We've all put ourselves in ridiculous positions in the business, but here I am. I'm 5 years older than Hulk, and I don't hurt at all. I've had some serious health issues, but I don't have an ache or pain in my body, and it bothers me, and of course it gives me anxiety that I could be next. We could
Wait a minute.
keep with that.
Ric Flair said this?
Yes.
He doesn't have an ache or pain in his body?
That is what he's claiming, yeah.
Well, okay.
So, I mean, so he's now getting anxiety that obviously, you know, someone like Hogan's going. I don't think it's going to stop him, you know, any of his choices in life, though, to make sure he lives a bit longer.
Ric Flair's Ric Flair. He's going to do what Ric Flair does. And, you know, one time I had a theory about him. I think he wanted, when he had his last match, that was so horrible because he said he died in the match. I mean, hey, when a wrestler tells you anything, just say, just mark it down. I just got a little bit of untruth in it. I think most of the things that wrestlers say, especially when they're drinking. But he said, did he say he died once or twice?
I think he claimed twice his heart stopped or his pacemaker kicked in or something.
Once wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to die once. No, I got to die twice. So it's really going to take somebody, some really doing to die 3 times and beat me. And Flair's another one you can't really put a lot of stock into what he says because he is liable to say anything. So, but didn't he start crying during this interview?
Yeah, it was about 10 minutes long, and I mean, he cries about a lot of things, but I think it's definitely something to cry over.
Oh, he does.
I mean, you know, it's a pretty big deal, so I don't begrudge him that, of course. He also is now cancer-free. He said that
well, that's good.
He had some skin issues, too much tanning or whatever else it was, and then he ignored, I don't know if it was a mole that had turned black and then expanded, not... He'd left it 8 years. He said he first started noticing something going wrong with his skin about 8 years ago and never did anything about it. To the point that I guess they turned into melanoma and he had to have them, surgically excised out. But at least, like, one on his arm, I think, at least a couple on his head, his forehead. But now at least he's cancer-free.
That's good. Because Rick and I don't agree on a lot of things, and we had a little brief run-in, but I'm glad he's like that because I don't wish harm on anybody, even if I hate them, which I don't hate anybody.
What do you think about Ric Flair, once again, just saying what he said, saying that he had no aches or pains in his body, and then there's someone like Hulk Hogan who has dozens of surgeries, and I mean...
I think he's...
You have aches and pains from your career, surely?
Well, hell yeah, I do. I mean, he was taking that slam almost, the slam off the top rope. He took it all the time on his side. He didn't take it on his back and let it spread out. He took it on his one side or the other. But that's after, and I don't know how many times he's taken that.
I did it. Do you know I did it? It was after the plane crash in '75 and he broke his back. And he said I guess he just found it more comfortable to land on his side.
Okay. Well, it may have been. I'd actually forgotten about that. I guess it would be hard to forget you're in a plane crash, right? But I wasn't in it. He was in it. He hasn't forgotten it. So
isn't that the joke that everyone liked to fly with Ric Flair because what were the odds that he was going to be in 2 plane crashes?
Oh yeah. But who was flying that plane?
It wasn't Flair. I don't know. It's just a pilot. It wasn't a wrestler.
They had also a plane crash like that in Florida one time.
Yep.
Killed Bobby Shane.
It did.
And Buddy Coat was on it. So, but anyway, that was like the 4-seater Cessna with the propellers. And they found out the one in Florida, their their what you call it, altimeter that tells them what level they're at.
Yeah.
He thought he was at 2,000 feet, and he was at like 200 feet, and it was cloudy, and they were flying at night. So what could go wrong there? And it actually ended up flying it right into the ground and didn't even know it. And it's a lucky only one of them got killed. You know, when you hit trees doing 150 miles an hour, that's a pretty good little bump. So, and that was the one, like I said, Buddy Colt got hurt in, and Bobby Shane got killed in. Back to the subject here.
Well, I just wanted to add
Hey,
one more thing.
don't let me go off on a tangent here, because I'll be over there in Texas somewhere, and we're talking about something here.
It's a long drive. It's a long drive. I mean, we've got to spread it out.
It is a long drive. I've made it so.
Surgeries. How many surgeries? I never asked you this. How many surgeries related to wrestling injuries have you had in your life?
Surgeries?
Yeah.
Oh, I never had a surgery. I've had, my knee replaced. It's still messed up.
You can claim that as a surgery.
Well, yeah, I had that surgery.
So you've only had one surgery related to wrestling then? Because I know you broke your leg, but you were stretching. You weren't even wrestling for that. So you've only had one surgery related to wrestling.
Yeah, that's what they said. I broke my leg, and I'm thinking, the hell? And that was during the pandemic, or the leading into the pandemic. I've told you this. And I was going to have some follow-up surgery, and then they canceled it because of the pandemic. And then that went by, and then they started doing elective surgeries again. So I rescheduled it. Then the second pandemic came, and then I had to cancel that. So by the time it came around, then the doctor said, and this is when I was way heavy. I was about 40 pounds heavier than my fat ass looks now. But the doctor says, we will have to, I'm not really sure about you having surgery. And I thought to myself, well, if you're not sure about it, I don't think I'm sure about it. So, and I'm still in need of surgery, but at this stage, I don't know. It's a major decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll mention one more thing about Hogan. Actually, there's going to be two, but Brutus Beefcake fallout. So I don't know if you know anything about this story. I've tried to cobble together. I asked people on Twitter what they had heard. Beefcake said something on Inside the Ropes last year as well, so I'll tell you about that. So Brutus Beefcake has expressed remorse for not reaching out to Hulk Hogan, and now he won't have the opportunity to make up with him after their fallout a few years ago. They fell out a few years ago for reasons nobody's quite sure about, other than Ric Flair once alleged that Beefcake stole jewelry out of Hulk Hogan's house. Have you ever heard that?
Never heard that before in my life.
So, conversely,
never heard that.
Conversely, Beefcake claimed last year that he and his wife were in Hulk Hogan's house, and Hulk Hogan was talking inappropriately in front of his wife, and that the Hulkster claimed that he liked to lube up his gentleman's sausage with cooking oil.
That is a piece of information I think that could have been omitted from that little brief speech that he gave. I mean, I don't think nobody wants to hear that, not even guys, if there's no women around. People, they would say, shut the hell up. So, but he said that, right?
That's what Beefcake claimed.
Allegedly.
Last year. Yeah.
We hadn't used that word much lately. Allegedly. We stopped using it, but we need to start using it more. Allegedly. So Hogan, he got mad about, who got mad about it? Brutus?
Maybe the wife as well, because I know that Greg Valentine, when I interviewed Greg Valentine, he was not a fan of Beefcake's wife at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure Hulk Hogan was a fan of Beefcake's wife at all. And that might have contributed to their fallout as well. So apparently, according to two separate things that other wrestlers have claimed, it was either that Beefcake stole jewelry out of Hogan's house, or that Hogan was talking inappropriately about oiling up his python, you know what I'm saying, in front of Beefcake's wife.
So, allegedly, back to that word, that was the cause of the breakup?
Maybe. How often have you been
Maybe.
around Beefcake? Was it just ever?
I just briefly, I don't even know him that well. I bet I've said hello to him maybe, I don't know, 5 times, 6 times. I don't know him that well at all.
So you've never said that you oil up any part of your body with anything in front of him?
No,
Or
no.
his wife? Okay, then. Right. Chelsea Green has received death threats. So, social media, you know what it's like. So many people had, given their well wishes to Hulk Hogan, rest in peace, and how, great of a performer or how important he was to the business, from Vince McMahon himself, who never posts on social media, to Sting, to Kevin Nash, to Steve Austin, to The Rock, to Kurt Angle, to everybody in between who's ever been a name in the business, has pretty much has, expressed, well wishes or condolences or whatever it is to the family. Now, WWE star Chelsea Green stepped away from social media after receiving death threats online. The star recently faced a lot of backlash following her comments after the passing of WWE legend Hulk Hogan. Chelsea, who is a former United States champion, immediately issued an apology for the post and stated that she tried to keep her social media presence light and wholesome, and Green was present on the latest episode of SmackDown in match against Jade Cargill. However, it was her revelation on social media that grabbed the headlines. Chelsea Green revealed that she received death threats for her post, basically just saying rest in peace, etc. Talking to Twitter.
What part of her post that drew the concern of wrestling fans?
Well, nobody was saying this, or few people saying this to Kurt Angle or Eric Bischoff or whoever else it might be, apparently, because I genuinely think it's because she's a woman that she's more likely to get abused. Because, we talked a couple of weeks ago about most harassed or abused athletes, pro wrestlers online, and the top 5 are all women. And Charlotte Flair was the most online abused or had the most negative comments of any athlete in any sport as well. So apparently a lot of people have descended on Chelsea Green for, wishing her condolences to Hogan. Yeah.
But the thing with Charlotte is a lot of times she intends that to hurt people.
Well, if you've seen, right, so WWE Unreal, that backstage reality show is out today as we record this. And I watched the first episode. I watched the last episode as well. I watched the first episode, and half of it really paints her out to be the total victim with her and Tiffany Stratton. Sort of leaves out all the, stuff that Charlotte did to Tiffany first to go off script and make her look bad. But yeah, no, she admitted that she was totally rattled by Tiffany's stuff as well. But I know we're not talking about Charlotte, but yeah, she didn't intend to get that abused by that crowd that week. Put her off again.
Well, as they say, live and learn.
Mm-hmm. So,
okay, what did Miss Green get attacked for?
So basically just posting condolences to Hulk Hogan. So she then revealed she'd received a lot of death threats for her post regarding Hulk Hogan in the wake of the legend's passing. The star was concerned for herself and her mental health, making an announcement about the same. She revealed later on that she is now going to take a break from social media, and it's just crap, isn't it? Like, why her of all people?
I have no idea, but they will learn. And I really like that girl.
Would you?
I mean, she's got a lot of talent. And I think she's you can just see her on TV, her expressions. She does that really, really good. And I think that's her. I don't think she has to act that much, because I think when she comes across as herself, basically, and it resonates with fans because she's a likable personality. And when I met her in TNA, I predicted success for her, and I don't think I predicted wrong.
So I've said that I think it's because she's a woman that she gets more abuse online. Is that your opinion as well? Because I don't think that your Stings and such. What do you think?
Not really.
Why do you think she's getting worse than other people?
I think somebody just wants to go on social media and argue against her and See if they get a reaction out of her.
Maybe. Right, we're going to move on then. So, non-Hogan stuff finally. D'von Dudley is returning to the ring. So, essentially, is it a good idea? So, I'm going to give you some of his health woes. Back in 2021, he said the following. It could have been really bad. I had a stroke. It could have been really bad, but they got it in time. There's no ill effects. I'm healing up extremely well. And then on an interview with Chris Van Vliet quite recently, he said he was almost 300 pounds. And basically what happened was that he had an issue after back surgery. So he's had spinal issues. He said everything was tight and he couldn't barely walk. Quote, I was walking with a limp like some of the old timers that I used to see who never really took care of their bodies, and they paid for it in the end. So he ended up doing some dietary stuff and some workouts with Diamond Dallas Page, or at the guidance of Diamond Dallas Page, and got him to lose something in the region of 85 pounds. And
Okay.
now
you have D'von saying that he has injuries from the past, but Ric Flair saying he doesn't have a pain or an ache in his body. So at least D'von is a hell of a lot closer to the truth than Rick is. But Rick is Rick, so we'll make allowances for him.
knowing that now, he's had a stroke in the past. He has wrestled since he had the stroke, but not since the spinal issues. But do you know of anyone who's had a stroke and then gone on to wrestle more?
Lawler.
He's gone on to wrestle more after the stroke?
And go on to wrestle more.
Yeah, wrestle after the stroke, yeah.
Lawler had a stroke, I think, and he wrestled after that. I think maybe I'm wrong.
He had the heart attack and then he wrestled after that, but I don't think he's wrestled since the stroke.
You calling me a liar?
Overtly.
I'm telling you, ill informed. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I thought he had one. Hey, a stroke is very, very serious. I didn't have a stroke. I did have an aneurysm, which is almost the same thing. So,
Is it the kind of thing you
couldn't
noticed?
melt.
Is it the kind of thing you noticed, or did you just say that they told you you'd had an aneurysm and you didn't even notice?
Well, I think I remember one time when I was in the ring, and there's a certain feeling that goes along with having an aneurysm, I think. And it's like, I can't describe it, but you're undergoing some kind of change mentally. And I remember where I was. I was in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I forgot who I was wrestling. It doesn't matter. But all of a sudden, it was just, everything was different. I knew who I was. I couldn't, at that moment, I couldn't tell you how I got there, why I was there. I was in a wrestling ring. And then I had some numbness in my arm and my leg. So I don't know if that, but I knew what was going on. I couldn't do anything about it. I finished the match and went out, and from then on, I had problems with it.
What year was this?
Oh, a long time ago, in the 80s.
Really? I didn't know this.
Oh, we were running. They were running us like, hey, the wrestling business is not a good decision to make health wise. It's really not. And I remember finishing the tour, and that was when Jerry Jarrett was doing a deal with the Texas territory, or he was taking it over or something. I don't really know how that deal worked. I never much liked it anyway. I didn't like to go to Texas and do that. I wasn't there much longer. But anyway, I think I had almost a mini stroke then, a very small one, but I continued to wrestle.
D'von has said that he still runs his wrestling school in Florida, which I don't think is very far away from you, actually, which you've been. I'm sorry, I was going to read something else. Then, so he still rolls around in the ring somewhat, and he's still taking the occasional bump, and he says he feels good and everything. I think he's about 50 years old now. One, would you advise this? And two, any stories about D'von as well? Because I know you worked with him in I'm not sure WWE, but you definitely did in TNA.
I was there in WWE and made some international tours with him. Didn't spend a lot of time around him because we had different opponents. You know, Swagger never interacted with those guys because I don't even know if were they heels then? I think they were or no.
No, they would have been baby faces. During their last run, they would have been baby faces.
And Swagger never had any matches with them. So I didn't interact with them that much, just in the same dressing room. Nice guys, and I like D'von, and nice guy to be around. Never had any problems at all with him, nothing. Just a great guy to be around. But if I had to advise him, I would say, D'von, really, he's 50, you say?
50, and in 3 months, he and Bully Ray, Bubba Ray, are going to be going against the Hardy Boys in a TNA pay-per-view sometime in October.
Well, I think caution is the word I would use. I would be very, very leery of doing that. Of course, you don't know. You don't know that if something bad happens. And if something bad happens, then I'm going to say I'm going to forewarn him right now that be careful. Be very careful.
Next up, Bryan Danielson disliked WrestleMania 30. You'll remember WrestleMania 30. It was in New Orleans. Yep. Hulk Hogan went out there, said the wrong building name. Your favorite?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we was all watching on big screen. He said that it exploded. He don't know where he is. And we had a good laugh. And who had to set him right, Rock or Steve?
Austin. It was Steve Austin who set him right, yeah. You know Hulk Hogan at that point, I know this has nothing to do with Bryan Danielson. Hulk Hogan in an interview later, speaking of just lying for no reason, he said, I had no idea Steve Austin was going to come out there. And Steve was like, yeah, you did. We talked like 10 seconds before you went through the curtain. You knew the exact plan. It's like, what? Anyway. But yeah, so everyone burst out laughing then.
So wait a minute. Hogan said he knew that Steve Austin wasn't coming out there. He didn't know that.
No, he claimed that.
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I wonder why. Why would he do that? Does he really believe that, you think, when he said it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But okay, you've got, all right. Tell us the reaction. Who are you with then? Who are you with when that happened?
Oh, when he said that?
Yeah.
Oh, I was watching the big screen in the Go area. You know, they have the big screen there, and if you're going to go on pretty soon, you'll congregate there, and you'll watch the show and comment on the show, and everybody's watching it just like fans at home are. And we don't know what he was going to say. And so when he says it, it's the first we hear it, just like the fans hear it. And but the Go area hit exploded. And we all had, and nobody, I don't know who said anything to Hulk on the way back, or if anything was said. I don't even think Vince said anything. But they go out there, and it's live TV. It's a live pay-per-view. So anything can happen.
Yeah, but that made it so much better in the end because everyone, it does. Like Rock and Steve Austin, just winding him up the entire time.
Oh, man, they roasted him. And I remember seeing a picture of it. Hogan's over here and Rock is talking, and Steve's over there in the corner with his foot propped up on the lower turnbuckle. And they're both looking at each other and said, I don't know. They had a good laugh at Hulk's expense. Well, nobody said anything to him about him because he's Hulk.
I need to ask you this. Did you stay till the main event, or did you just leave as soon as your match was done? Because I think were you the opener that day?
No, I think we were on I forgot who we was against then.
I'm just looking it up now. You
Yeah.
were. Oh yeah, you were on the pre-show, weren't you? So you were against the Usos. You and Cesaro and Swagger
Was it?
versus the Usos, and Los Matadores
Yeah,
and
I
Ryback.
remember. It was a three-way. I
It
remember
was a
that
four-way,
now.
apparently. Goodness me.
No, actually, and that match has a story behind it too, because they changed the finish during the match.
What?
Oh yeah.
Oh right, okay, right. Forget what I was going to ask. Let's reframe it. So the Usos defeat Los Matadores and the Real Americans and Ryback, which is Curtis Axel, and Ryback by pinfall. So the Usos were not meant to win that.
Oh, not going out there. So we're about who went out first? The
I've no
what
idea.
team went out first?
It was an
Okay.
elimination match. So do you want me to? Do you
Yeah,
know
read
what?
it.
I'm going to pause this and just figure it out. One sec. Wow, that took like 10 minutes for me to actually find the fall or the order of fall. So Jack Swagger made Fernando of Los Matadores submit to the Patriot Lock in 5:38, and then Cesaro had the second team elimination when Cesaro pinned Ryback with the neutralizer, and then Swagger was bleeding from the left arm, and it came down to the Usos versus Swagger versus Cesaro, and Coulter, that's you, Zeb Coulter, told Swagger to shake Cesaro's hand. I'm sorry. So what happened at the end then? So after the match, the Usos do a double super kick on Cesaro, followed by both coming off the top rope with splashes to finish him. Right, okay then. So we've got the order of elimination, and it was the Real Americans eliminated last. So what was the original plan then, Dutch?
We were supposed to go over. The Real Americans were supposed to go over. But after the two teams were eliminated, are we recording now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. After the two teams were eliminated, it left it down to the Real Americans and the Usos, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And at the start of that, the referee come over and told me, or he told one of the guys, I think he told Jack, and Jack was on the outside, and he called me over and he said, they've changed the finish. I went, what? They've changed the finish. They want the Usos to go over. I says, well, I didn't give a crap. I'm just working there. But I'm saying, you know, this, this is, and I could really feel that day that the Real Americans were kind of getting over, because the crowd was, when they left it down to the Usos and the Real Americans, that crowd perked up a little bit. You know, if you've been around as many matches as I've been, you can tell a difference in the vibe in the crowd, and wrestlers feed off that. And so when Swagger told me, I says, well, and what was the finish? Who'd they beat? Beat Cesaro?
They beat Cesaro, which is the interesting thing, because did you know that Cesaro was then going to win the Battle Royal on the show itself?
Yeah.
So that was always the plan. Cesaro was going to win.
Well, it didn't make sense to me. I said, you know, we've been here since 12 o'clock, noontime. You know, you got to be there. And so we got there maybe 2 o'clock, but we had been there in plenty enough time and we could have worked a hell of a finish. But we didn't know about it till the matches. Two teams were gone, and now they're telling us to improvise a finish in the middle of a match. And it's too late to work anything really complicated. And you just do a simple thing. So, and they beat Cesaro. And I remember leaving the ring, and the crowd, you know, I said the vibe was up, and then Cesaro gets beat, and then the crowd goes, and we were like heels. So which surprised me somewhat, but it did tell me that there was life in this team. But not according to creative, because we got there the next day and they just pulled Cesaro away from us. and said they're going to put him with Paul Heyman and they're going to give him a push. Well, they gave him a push, all right. almost taking him to the airport, putting him on a plane back home. But they put him with a new manager, Paul Heyman, and it died within 3 weeks. Just died the death of a dog. So now, I don't think I've ever been in a match where, especially, and it was a pre-show type deal. I get that, and I don't think you can actually look at a match and say, "Oh well, they came up with that on the fly." But giving change the finish in the middle of a match, and it came from Vince. Okay, we'll do it, and nobody could tell it, but the reasoning behind it, and I remember stopping, and I told Jack and Cesaro, hear that crowd, and they says, "What crowd?" I said, "Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. We left them dead." But if we'd have went over, I think they would have been up more than the baby faces going over. I mean, they popped a little bit, but I think they wanted the real Americans to win that day. And I'm not saying that just out of vanity. I'm saying it because it was real. Because the real Americans were getting over. But then forget that. They took him away the next day, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, that was for the WWE Tag Team titles as well, that match. So, yeah, you must have thought, great, we're really going to, make something of this team. Oh, no, actually.
We're going to get a, well, it was a big deal for them to put Cesaro with us. So, I mean, Vince called me. He had called me about 2 weeks, no, about a month earlier. He said, "I'm thinking of putting you with another guy with swagger." And I said, "Okay, who you got?" He said, "Well, I was going to ask you." And this is the only time Vince ever called me. And he said, "I'm thinking of Cesaro." He said, "Because he needs a little something." I said, "Yeah, I think Cesaro would work great." Well, he said, "How would it be with the real Americans?" I said, "No, he was an immigrant who came over and did it the right way, and he wanted to be an American. And yeah, he's an American because he did it the right way." I mean, if they'd done that today, with all this talk about the immigrants and all that, it would have taken off, and it would have taken off then. But he was only with us. I think Cesaro was only with us, I don't know, a month, maybe.
I'd say a bit longer. I'd say a bit longer. There's quite a few.
Okay. But it seemed very short to me.
Do you know, that's such typical WWE booking, is make someone lose just before they have a massive win. They never just have someone win, on the way to a championship or whatever. They'll always have them lose and then win as part of a swerve, I guess, or something, which doesn't really make any sense.
Listen, I grew up under this adage, ADAGE, this little quirk. If you're going to push somebody, push them. Don't push them, pull back, and push them again, because now you get the fans confused. Push him all the way. Don't have him in any compromising situations leading up to putting the title on him. I mean, if you're going to strap a rocket to his butt, let that rocket fly. But see, with the WWE in those days, you would get a push and you'd get a stopper, then another push. So, and that's why it takes guys, if you'd have went straight through the old Memphis thing, showing those pre-tapes of the team that's coming, and then push them. We did it, and I mean, Memphis did it, they took off. Also, Mid-South did it, they took off. Then Mid-America, I mean, in Charlotte area, Mid-Atlantic did it, and they took off. But they didn't have fits of stops and starts, because that would have messed it up. That's my opinion, and I'm standing by it.
I'm going to blow your mind here. You said he was with you for about a month, Cesaro.
Yeah, how long was he?
10 months.
That long?
Yeah, June 17th episode of Raw, Cesaro came to work with Zeb Coulter and Jack Swagger, and WrestleMania 30 was at the
That was 90. That was 90. 95, right?
What? No, 2013.
2013. I'm sorry, I don't know what
I
said that.
No, I was going to say you're off by about 28 years.
Yes.
We don't edit the flubs out here for the most part, folks.
Well, what I'm saying is, and sometimes he wouldn't even be on TV. And time has a way in WWE of getting away from you, because it's like it's a never ending grind. I mean, those days we would go for the weekend shows, and we would stay over for Raw, and then they would do SmackDown on Tuesday nights, and sometimes they do a Wednesday night show. And I heard some guy would just stay in the town where he was in last and have him fly him out of there. I think that was he was a guy they put the title on him in New Orleans.
Yeah, Bryan Danielson.
I think he had him pick up his room and wherever he stayed over, and they did it.
Very quickly, did you stay for the main event of that?
I did.
So,
and when he won, they didn't tell anybody in the dressing room either. I mean, they didn't tell anybody backstage other than the people who knew.
So, Bryan Danielson apparently disliked WrestleMania 30, or that specific moment. So I'll give you the quote. I main evented WrestleMania 30 with WWE, and honestly, it doesn't mean that much to me, he told somebody in a new interview. My sister and my niece got to come into the ring, but I was about to marry my wife the following Friday, and they wouldn't let her come down to the ring. So Brie Bella at the moment, so she was an on-screen character at the time. They didn't want her to be in the thing, and then on top of that, it wasn't just that. It was like I was going through a ton of neck pain and all these other things. So these things that seem like cool moments to a viewer, there's all this other stuff going on in a wrestler's life or in a performer's life that could make the moment not as valuable to them as it seems to the people viewing. And then he says his actual favourite moment was last year at All In when he wrestled Swerve Strickland and won the AEW title. Is he just a really good actor?
Remember that? Do you remember that?
Yeah. I remember them both very well, in fact. Does that ring true to you? Does, some of the biggest moments in your career might not have coincided with happy times and, vice versa, some of the smaller times, or people don't remember certain times that are actually your happiest?
Happy times?
Mm-hmm.
What's that? I'm in the wrestling business. Mm-hmm. Hey, those happy times, sometimes they're far and few in between.
We'll move on then. Right, so SmackDown this past Friday, and you saw the promo, Jelly Roll, his first promo. I wanted your opinion of how you thought he did, and he's going to be wrestling with Randy Orton against, well, we think Drew McIntyre at this point, but that'll be the next thing, and Logan Paul. But just for now, the promo of Jelly Roll, what do you think? Your critique?
I thought it was pretty good. It was better than what I expected, because sending him down to the ring by himself, you're taking a chance. Now, he's used to working in front of big crowds. I'm not worried about that. But he had some physicality he had to carry off too. So there were some parts in there I kind of questioned, but the ending, when what did he give the swing around slam, the black hole slam? He did that pretty good. Now he had gone to the NXT training performance center, right?
Yeah, every single day apparently he's there training, so he's taking it far more seriously than, say, Travis Scott was.
Well, that's because he grew up a wrestling fan. He's from Tennessee anyway. Wrestling was very big there, and actually, you could throw a rock from the old place we used to work in Nashville and probably hit his house. He's not in the best section of town. He did have a tough upbringing. He's been in prison. He's been on drugs. So, and he brought that out. He brought that out in his interview a little bit, because people that are Jelly Roll fans, they know his past, and they know where he came from. But I thought what they had him do was very good, and he learned a lot in a week.
How do you even pronounce this? Antioch, Tennessee.
Antioch, yes.
Yeah, I've never even heard that place before. Then, so rough area.
Well, no, it's a suburb of Nashville. That's what it is.
So, are you holding out any hope that
It's
this
a
match could
biblical.
actually be
It's
good?
a
I'm sorry.
it's a biblical term, a biblical city, Antioch.
Do you hold out any hope that this match is going to be good? What's the best way of doing a sort of celebrity wrestling match? Just keep them out as much as possible.
I think it'll. Yeah, I think it. It's not going to. It's not going to blow them out. But I think it'll be representable. I think it'll be decent because the people aren't expecting a wrestling classic anyway. Because you got Jelly Roll in there, big fat bastard, but at least he has respect for what we do, and or he wouldn't have went down there to the performance center because last thing he wants to do is get in the ring and embarrass himself. That's the last thing he wants to do. So, but I think Jelly Roll, and I don't know how they got in contact with him, or he got in contact with them, but he is a big country western country singer, so he'll have his fans there, and I think it'll be not bad. It won't be great, but I think it'll be presentable.
Who's the best celebrity wrestler you've ever seen, apart from Logan Paul? Because I think he's head and shoulders above everybody. But the best celebrity who went to wrestling.
Think the say that again. What is the what?
The
now?
Best celebrity who had a wrestling match, or the most the one who did wrestling the best, I guess. Which celebrity?
Wasn't
It wasn't Travis Scott. We know that.
Horrible. Most of them are horrible because most of them, they're doing it for themselves, not for, they don't want to protect the business. But I think Jelly Roll, he's a wrestling fan and he wants to do good with it. Name me somebody that's actually had a match like that.
I was thinking like Stephen Amell. You could argue Muhammad Ali. There's quite a few boxers over the years have had wrestling matches. I'm trying to think. Not that many, I guess.
Can't think of any.
No, there's probably some really obvious. Drew Carey with Royal Rumble when he just jumped over the rope and didn't get touched.
It was actually a good finish.
Yeah, he offered money to Kane. It was great.
So who did Lawler back suplex? Andy who? Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman. Yeah, of course. That's a classic.
He was horrible.
Oh, well.
But he had such a character. He could do that. That fit his character. And when he got in the ring, but Memphis, again, took their time in getting this started. They didn't rush it through. All of a sudden, Andy Kaufman's here, boom, slap the king, getting him in. He told a story that took, I guess it took 6-8 months to tell the story. But when he got in there, it's not his work inside the ring, it's how he was received by the fans. And they received him like a stone cold heel. And he played the part well. I'm going to have to say Andy Kaufman was probably the best, not work-wise, but he could excite those fans, and they literally hated him.
I'll give you a couple more. Pat McAfee, of course, he was really good. He was really good in the ring as well. Stephen Amell, who was on Arrow, he's Cody Rhodes' buddy. Bad Bunny. He definitely didn't embarrass himself. Maria Menounos, Dennis Rodman. I think he had one okay match, then fell asleep on the corner. Karl Malone was the guy who he wrestled, the other basketball guy as well. He did quite well. I can't think of too many others who've actually had decent match. Mr. T, he had a decent wrestling match because he didn't do anything. Roddy Piper just pinned him to the floor and just lay on him.
That's why you got to put experienced people with them. You can't put a green guy with a green actor because you're really asking for it then. So to be in the ring with an actor like that, you got to be a pretty good talent yourself. So now I'm wondering, what is Drew McIntyre? And oh, wait a minute, is he back in the States now?
We're gonna come to that in a second, because for some reason I wrote something else in the script in the middle of those two stories that would have absolutely perfectly segued into each other. So the Undertaker returned on Tuesday to WWE television.
Why did he return?
I'm sorry?
Why did he return?
It's because, or my theory is that WWE LFG is Legends, Freaks and Giants, or whatever that stands for, is doing so badly in the ratings that they're trying to get a bit of extra publicity for it.
Yep.
Have you seen a single second of LFG?
I haven't seen it. But what is it? I know they training these guys.
Yeah, it's the thing is that it's like, right, these guys and girls are gonna have celebrity trainers, you know, like the Undertaker or Booker T or Bubba Ray and Mickey James or whoever it might be. And it's like tough enough.
What does that stand for? Legends?
I can't remember. I just said Legends, Freaks and Giants. I just made it up. It's something. And here's the thing, is that so the winner of the show gets a contract with WWE. But the fact is that quite a lot of the people already in the show are already signed with WWE NXT. They just didn't debut on TV yet. You tell me. What's the point of this thing?
I have no idea.
So, the reason I mention it is because he turns up on NXT, he interrupts Trick Williams, he chokeslams Trick Williams. Very briefly, you watched the segment. Good segment?
I did watch. Segment wasn't bad. Segment was good. But here you're seeing Undertaker as Mark Callis, basically. He's the Undertaker, and what he said was, I don't think your ass has enough weight to handle the OG or whatever. And then he scooped him and did the drop on him. But unless you understand the build-up to it, it's just, you have to know that something happened for him to do that. But since I don't watch the show, but LFG, I think the concept of it, I don't know how you could really grow that, because you're taking all unknowns. They're getting to know these people while the show is going on. Has it been renewed for another year?
Yeah, it has, unbelievably as well. And the ratings for this are like 75,000 per episode. I mean, it's just doing nothing. And I've got two theories, and I'm going to give them to you, Dutch. I'm sorry?
That same number on a UHF station.
Well, we kill those numbers on this YouTube channel weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even like unique viewers. We destroy that. But here's the thing. I've got two theories, right? One is WWE puts so many hours of first-run television out. Just WWE. So 3 for Raw, 2 for SmackDown, 2 for NXT, 1 for main events. That's 8, I'm sorry. If you include Evolve, which is their little online thing for upcoming stars.
What is Evolve? That's in Florida, right?
I think it might be, yeah, actually. It might
be,
in
Florida.
So it's almost like a pre-NXT. So, you've got like, real underground wrestlers who haven't made it even to NXT yet. Let's call that an hour, so that's 9. Then you've got the Speed Internet show, internet-only show. This week in WWE, so call that at least 10 and a bit. And then all the PLEs. So that's at least 10 hours first-run television, at least. And then with PLEs, it's going to be 13, 14. And if it's a WrestleMania or SummerSlam, we're talking, and not including the pre-shows. And here's the thing. If you want to see the stars of tomorrow, you've already got NXT and you've got Evolve. Why do we need a third WWE show featuring talent that hasn't made the main roster yet?
Well, I guarantee you they're selling it somewhere. They're making money off it somewhere.
I don't think they're not doing that. Losing it big time, unless A&E have paid up front for it. whatever it's shown on.
Well, they got a lot of international contracts that a lot of these shows go to.
Not here, I don't think. I'm not sure LFG
Well,
is available on Netflix.
They show it in Tibet. Let's say that. They show it in Nepal. They show it in some off the place that's even off the radar. That's where they're showing it.
Right, next up, we're going to be talking about, which we should have talked about before the Undertaker's return and the whole thing. Drew McIntyre barred from flying to the USA. So you've seen the video that Drew sent. Tell us what I've got the quote, but it's more fun for you to tell us what he said.
Well, he's not sure he can get back in the USA because of his passport. And which is a problem now in the US because I think tourism is down because Trump is trying to, I guess, stop a lot of traffic to the US. I don't know why they stopped Drew because he's got a passport, and I don't know why they stopped him. I can see the reasoning on some of the other stuff, but his wife got back. She came back, right?
Maybe it's because she is American, and I think the thing was
that
Drew. I'll check up on that, but I think Drew tried to use his British passport, and they either demanded that he use his American passport, which he didn't have on him, or he wasn't coming back.
Well, now this is the problem. If WWE runs in that, how are they going to do Saudi Arabian tours and all this without a lot of trouble, or them kicking some guys off the tour?
Yeah, well, I mean, tourism is down in the States, and this is very much partially for it because, I mean, there's some real draconian rules as far as, like, passport control. So, I mean, I might have told you this. My brother didn't have any issues a couple of months ago when he went, but I've heard times where, you know, if you don't let TSA have access to your phone so they can swipe through it for whatever reason, go on your social medias, see which way you voted, or see if you've ever said anything in an email or whatever it might be, they won't let you in. I mean, that's not for everybody who goes through the gates, obviously, but like they're being really, really authoritarian at the border at the moment. And, you know, most people are just going in for, you know, tourism, and people are put off by it. I'm put off by it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know that. I can see it at the Mexican border, but I doubt many Mexicans come across that border with a passport. I don't think. That's why they're going across there. But this has been a problem for a while, especially with Canada. But now he's in England, and he's having trouble getting back. So you haven't heard any more about that as of right now?
No, it's confirmed currently that I think he's still here. And you would have thought that, you know, with TKO and all the clout that they have, they might be able to pull some strings. But what do you think they're going to do? Try and send him like an American passport in short order, or what?
They'll get him back.
The Miz has apparently said that, hey, well, if Drew McIntyre can't make it back, I'm more than happy to step in his shoes. And to be honest, I'm not sure there's anyone better than The Miz, because he's done celebrity tag team matches and mixed tag team matches, and you can plug that guy in pretty much anywhere.
Well, if The Miz was in that, I don't know what the finish of this match is going to be. Say the original match. What do you envision that match to finish to be?
Jelly Roll pinning Logan Paul. Do you think they give Jelly Roll the pinfall for all his hard work?
No, but I do envision The Miz could fill in very good there, and the people would kind of buy that. I think beating Logan Paul, if anybody's going to beat anybody, it's going to be, I think, Orton beating one of them. I think.
Well, if
I don't
it's The
think
Miz,
they will
then yeah, he's
over.
getting pinned.
And The Miz would be a perfect guy. And I don't think the Miz popped out of nowhere with that he'd fill in. I think they talked to him, and I think that's the replacement that he's got. And he could tell a hell of a story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'd do a fine job.
I think he would too.
So here's a quote from Drew. Always goes perfectly fine going over the border, but not this time. Drew, you don't have your United States passport, which is what they told him. I know who you are. I know you've lived there for a long time. I know you're showing me pictures of your passport and your global entry, and it doesn't matter. I know exactly who you are, your property and the likes, but no, we can't let you into the country, buddy. We can't let you into the country. So my wife and I panic, and she is American. I've checked up on that, which is why she was allowed through. And we say, we've got a sick animal at home. We're good people. We care about our animals. We care about people. I'm like, go ahead. Don't think about me. To his wife, leave me behind. Leave me to die. It's okay. So she has to go against her will, goes back home, looks after the cat, Drew McIntyre said. I mean, that's crap, innit? Because, I mean, if he's got an American passport, he's got to be an American citizen. Are there, like, levels of citizenship? And you've got to live there for 20 years or something?
Well, I don't quite understand it, so I don't know what's going on. But if he does have a problem, they at least have that covered. Now everybody knows it. That's why he can't be there. So if they know he's not coming, they know the Miz up front is going to fill in. They'll make that plain on SmackDown, I'm sure. So they got that covered. So we'll see what it does. I'm wishing them a lot of success. And if anybody can get him back, it would be TKO.
No, I think so as well. We'll probably end on this. Tranisha Biggers arrested again. Now, you might be asking to yourself, everybody out there, who is Tranisha Biggers? Dutch, who is Tranisha Biggers?
Rhaka Khan. I had her in TNA. I gave her the name, Rhaka Khan. And somebody says, Rhaka Khan, why would that name? I said, well, hey, we can't call her Tranisha Biggers. I mean, that's, and she's an impressive looking woman. She's about 6'2".
She's like a Jade Cargill. I mean, not as well built, but like a Jade Cargill before Jade Cargill kind of thing. But
this is the same lawsuit that she brought in TNA. It's the same, almost. I think she sued Jeff Jarrett again. She sued him.
Again?
No, he was in the original one in TNA. Right. Because she says that we are teaming up to undermine her advancement in the world of professional wrestling. We're actually working in tandem with each other to stop her success. And that's basically what this lawsuit is saying here. And she she even sued Panda Energy again, because Panda Energy owned TNA in the first place. I don't know if Panda Energy is even still around.
No, well, they don't, nothing to do with TNA now. Listen, I mean, the big thing here is that what hampered her advancement in wrestling was a complete lack of talent. And she's mental.
That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I'm going to say more. Right, so former wrestler Tranisha Biggers, best known as Rhaka Khan in professional wrestling. She was briefly in WWE.
Who gave her that name?
You gave her the name.
I made her famous.
You made her famous. Here's the thing, right? I'm not going to read the rest of this just now. So, right, so she was in a relationship with Kurt Angle after Kurt and Karen split, which was an absolute complete nightmare for Kurt.
That was another headache.
Oh, yes, that was another headache, especially for him. But yeah, there's more to that story as well. She has sued people multiple times, including one lawsuit where she sued nearly 1,000 people. And you weren't in it, would you believe? She tried to sue
Jim. No, I wasn't in it.
I know, Jim Cornette.
I wasn't in it. She kind of liked me. Remember that old saying is, hey, I stay in my lane and I don't try to be any more controversial than I have to be. She liked me is the only reason I think I wasn't sued.
She tried to sue.
It didn't go anywhere, but, you know.
Of course it didn't. Of course it didn't. She tried to sue entire states. She tried to sue Chris Benoit. who's dead. Tried to sue Michael Jordan. She tried to sue everybody she had ever heard of.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, it was crazy. Anyway, let me read from this.
Now you see my. That makes a little more sense now, doesn't it?
She tried to apparently kidnap her children that I guess were taken away from her more than once. This is why she's been arrested again. So I'll read this. Briefly in WWE from 2005 to 2006, very briefly, she was in TNA 2008 to 2009. Got involved with Scott Steiner, P.T. Williams, aligned with Awesome Kong as part of the Kong Tourage and more. After her release from the former Impact Wrestling, she had a brief run in Lucha Libre USA. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. According to TMZ, Tranisha was escorted out of her former Midtown apartment in New York on July 26th around 11:30 a.m. on a criminal trespass charge. Tenants reported that Biggers remained on the property without permission in violation of an order of eviction she was previously served. The site, which, because I can't get, and this is a temporary thing here that I can't really get the photos up, obtained photos of her being walked out of 17th Precinct. And Tranisha began a wrestling journey in 2005 on the Diva search, but was eliminated early as well. But yeah. So yeah, she's apparently trying to kidnap her own children, sue dead people, everything.
That is, for someone who never did anything in pro wrestling other than, I don't think a lot of people even know who she is.
Yeah, okay,
but
right. So I'll tell you, all right. So for the Scott Steiner Maths promo, the really, really famous one, 144 and a third chance of winning, all that kind of thing, she's in the background. That's like the only thing she's like famous for years into the future. Not that she's famous. She was there. She could have been a cardboard cutout.
Awesome Kong beat the hell out of her one night in the ring.
Tell me.
Well, they went in the ring and I don't know who had been in her head. You don't need to do this and you don't need to do that because you blah, blah, blah. Well, she went in there against Kong and Kong was trying to help her. She didn't want to do this, or she made Kong look bad in a couple of spots. Kong said, okay, enough of this. Kong just beat the hell out of her and just beat her up and pinned her and walked out the door. Walked back to the dressing room. And she walked back and I says, Kong, what happened? She says, and she kept walking. I didn't ask her anymore. But I will say that Miss Biggers came back to the dressing room a much more humbled lady than she went out.
Just to remind people, this is a non-complete list of the people she tried to sue a couple of years ago. The state of Texas, the El Paso Child Protective Services, the FBI, the Las Cruces and New Mexico Police Departments, the NYPD, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, New York, ACS, I'm sorry, I'm going to get my glasses on, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Inc., Shirley Police Department, more. All right, let's get to the names. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, The Miz and Maurice, Heath Miller, Nikki Bella, Chris Benoit, who was dead since 2007, Mark Jindrak, Panda Energy, Home Depot, apparently must have sold her a Duff Hammer, Florida Championship Wrestling, Steve Kern, the NWA, Billy Corgan, Deep South Wrestling, Bank of America, Michael Jordan, several universities, Jim Cornette, Mick Foley, New York City Area Energy Company, Con Edison, and nearly 1,000 in total.
She sued Jim Cornette.
Oh, yeah, why not? Isn't it more surprising she tried to sue Michael Jordan?
Who did she sue in this one?
I don't know. I think she was just handed an eviction notice and wouldn't leave. When did she sue Jeff? When did this happen?
I think she sued him in the first one.
Damn. Well,
Dixie Carter got sued. Jeff got sued. I don't think Vince Russo got sued either.
You're gonna have
Me
to
and
ask him
Vince,
now.
we kind of missed it. How do you miss that when they sue 500 people?
I know you're getting to the point where you're feeling left out.
I did. I felt a little bit left out with that big big load of people, and my name wasn't in there. So,
hey, well, there's always time. There's always time for another lawsuit, Dutch, and you never know. Right, on that basis, everybody, thank you so much for watching. We're going to see you again on Sunday for Ask Dutch Anything. Yes, Dutch?
What about the belt?
That's next
That's
episode. Yeah. That's going to be the main event, in fact, of Ask Dutch Anything.
Okay.
So many of you emailed in, and thank you for reminding us to talk about the belt story. Now, this is something that Dutch left out of the original story involving USWA and Larry Burton when we talked about it a couple of years ago, but Dutch is now going to talk about that story in Ask Dutch Anything this coming Sunday. And if you want to have your question asked to the Dirty Dutchman himself, it is questionsfordutch@gmail.com. That is questionsfordutch@gmail.com. That is the only way to submit your question for further and future consideration to be asked to the Dirty Dutchman on ADA every single Sunday. Until then, Dutch, and until then, everybody.
If anybody wants to ask me a question directly, dirtydutchmantell@gmail.com.
Very good. On that basis, we'll see you on Sunday. Dutch, we the people.
We the people.